Hey, you're out in the garage with TheEZGZ, and it's Wire the Buggy Day. Okay, I want to give you a quick reference. This isn't finished, but it's a good time to video what I do have so far. Here's my battery. I would prefer it if it was lower, and I may get a smaller battery later on and make some changes, but for now I'm just using up stuff I had. As some of you might remember, I had an engine stand and I made a little instrument panel for it, so I robbed some of the stuff from that and I'm just proceeding. And this is the battery that I was using. So on a Volkswagen, a normal 12 volt Volkswagen, it is negative ground. So you go to the negative side of your battery and you find yourself a good solid ground. Volkswagen had rubber isolation blocks for the engine and transmission, so they ran a ground strap. If you're not solid wired to your frame, you need one of those. If you're using a solid mount without rubber insulators, then you need some means to make a better connection for things on your engine and transmission. Okay? Now, the next thing is, you're hot. Okay? You're hot all of the time from your battery to your starting motor lug, right? The big screw on your starting motor. And on that screw, you're also running all the time hot, even when the key's off, to the battery plus terminal on your internally regulated alternator. This post is your idiot like. This screw is a grounding the casing. You've got some other places with screws and things. You don't necessarily have to do it. It will work. But chances are, if you might want to add a special ground for your alternator, that does a lot. Okay? It might improve the output of your alternator. Okay? Now, the next thing I'm doing is I'm coming off that terminal with like a number 12 gauge wire, and I'm going to this 30 amp auto reset breaker. It's just a breaker. It's not a one-time fuse, okay? It's not something that you need to replace, although they can go bad. You might need them. If it totally craps out, you could just take the wire from one post and put it on here and continue on your way. If you find you don't have a problem, but you do have something going on inside here. And I've just got this hose clamp going to a bare tube to hold it in place. There's tabs and places for screws. I don't want to weld things all over this frame. I want to make sure everything's working before I start doing things like that. Now, I take one wire, one hot wire. In theory, to put an end on this breaker, what happens is if you get a short circuit, it will heat up and open the breaker in there. It gradually cools off and tries again and again and again. And it will continue this until it totally fails or your car catches fire or something like that, right? So it's a maintenance-free item. I wouldn't short it out to try to test it, but it's supposed to be 30 amp. Okay, now, the hot wire, it should be a heavier gauge, but I'm using what I got. Every place where you see a wire in this instrument panel is hot. I've daisy chained every one of these screws to each other. Okay? Every single one. I run my hot wire up to this switch. This is going to be my ignition switch. And out of the accessory side of that switch, it's going to this top row of screws. Actually, it goes to the bottom, but they're connected by the bar, and then I have all of the top ones tied together. Man, they've got a real cool setup on a terminal strip where they give you a metal plate and you can cut it in pieces, or you can put the whole thing in there, and it just eliminates having these stupid wires in there. But I haven't seen those in a while, and you can probably get them from Grainger or an HVAC place, something like that. But anyhow, all right? So that's all hot. Everything's hot. Then I've taken one hot lead, and I've run it to this red light. And I've taken another hot lead, and I've run it to this yellow light. And I've taken another hot lead, and I'm running it to this momentary push switch. Okay? And then these two switches will be for... I'm filling the holes. That was pre-drilled. I'll probably put some tractor lights or something simple on here. And all I have to do is... I've got 2 more screws to run to these switches, and they'll be ready to go. Now, so that's why everything's red. Volkswagen uses black as their hot color. Alright, I'm just making a blanket statement there. If you have a Volkswagen sedan and look at the color schematic and start tracing out wires like the one going to your ignition coil, it's usually black. Okay? And it's hot. Alright? But in this case, I just had a whole spool of this number 14 red, and I'm using it. And, okay, here's another comment. Always use stranded wire with DC voltage. If you got a solar panel or whatever, if it's DC, use stranded wire. The only time you use solid core wire is on an alternating current. And the only reason you have a breaker panel in your house for all those different circuits is not to protect the appliance that you have plugged in. It's to protect the wires in the wall, to prevent a fire where it could get hot and start smoldering and then burst into flames when you're not home or in the middle of the night when you're sound asleep. Okay? That's the purpose of a fuse. I see a lot of guys with fancy fuse blocks, and if you look at a modern car, they've got all these fuses in there. The only time I've ever had trouble with a Dune Buggy is when it was wired by somebody else with fuses. I clipped a tree branch, and I got a brake light wire that grounded out to the frame, and it took out the whole car. And it's, you know, I don't know why the ignition would have been in that circuit. Maybe they just had one fuse. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But I swore after like the second time I had a fuse issue and didn't have the right size fuse with me anyhow, I went ahead and just said, I'm never going to do it, and ripped it out and redid it. This box has got some kind of a clear protective paper. I think it's meant more to protect the finish, but you could... do like I did. I put Gorilla Tape on the lid, and I think that plastic is just to protect the aluminum. And there's a chrome one. I might use that instead, even though it's used. So there you have that. I did not mount this. I don't want screws sticking out. I could put them from the outside in. It's just more... No, not going to do that. And like I said, I got the Gorilla Tape there. They're short little runs, and they're all powered off of this terminal strip. The only thing you've got on the oil sending unit circuit is this light. That's the only thing that's powering up. You could run much smaller wire. The same thing with your 12-volt alternator. You're sending, when you put the ignition switch on, you're sending power, and that light is on, to this terminal. And that is what activates the internal regulator that's inside here. Okay? Then when it fires it up, the regulator senses the voltage, and this is turning, and your light goes out. Okay? Simple as that. Very simple setup. Very little trouble from that. I have this trailer connector. I'm going to cut it in the middle, and I'm going to use this plug on, I'll probably put the female on the buggy side, and I'll probably put these males on the engine side, and I can run the idiot light. I can run my ignition. I can run my oil light. What are we up to? Three things. If I wanted to run a tachometer later on or something like that, I could grab it, and it's when I disconnect my engine, my throttle cable, take my bolts out, all I got to do is unplug this and move it out of the way. Don't forget to unbolt this one. I'm not going to run that through a plug. I like a direct hookup on that, and when you disconnect that, have some tape, because that is hot all the time. Or disconnect your battery, of course. That's always the safest thing to do. So this is a very low load situation. I do also have a fuel pump, but I'll probably tie that in to my ignition switch. Maybe I'll get fancy and put it on one of these other switches so that it does something. But that's something else I got to remember. You turn on my ignition and hit the starter button, and it's like, it runs for a second and then goes off. It's like, uh-oh, what's the matter? And you forgot to turn on the fuel. I'm going to tie it in so that when this is hot, that will be too. It's got an extra spade on here that says ground. That's because this little switch has got an internal light in here. You ain't even going to see that in the daytime. But at night it might glow in low light situations. So what else do we need to cover on this? I'm just going to, for the time being, I'm going to come down here, down the side, back up, and to my power right here, and I'll probably run my fuel pumps on the other side. I like to keep fuel and gas away from electrical stuff. This is in a tank, but that's why my fill and cap is on the other side. Kind of separates things out. I chose this side because the starting motor's on this side. Okay? And I'll probably use some kind of a sleeve and put my wires in it, either this type of wraparound. You can see here's an example where I had a piece of this, so I used some fuel line and ran some wires because it must have been close to something that I was worried about. I have often, here's an example where I just used an old extension cord. I was thinking about actually buying some trailer wiring that's factory cased in it, and you can see what I did here. I just I soldered my connections, or used a crimp connector, and then I put some shrink tube over the top of it and just made a portable little light. And then later on I found those tail lights at Harbor Freight with the magnetic bases and the LED lights. It was a heck of a lot cheaper to buy it that way. These are the old filament lights, and those new ones work a lot better. Some guys use big lights like this for their oil pressure, or their a yellow one, or whichever color you want to use it for your alternator, your power. And it's not just that it's not charging. Maybe your belt came off. If you're charge light comes on, maybe the belt came off. Maybe you got a branch back there or was dragging your tail in the sand and it came off, or just hit 9 jillion RPM and it flew apart. You never know. But, okay. I know it looks like a mess, but I just kind of wanted to show you this stuff. Here's a neat little item that you can make little stickers. If you don't have a lot of colored wires, you can monitor them. You just peel it off. It's like a roll of tape. It's got all these numbers on it, and then you put it on both ends of the wire, and you know what it is. And if you got more than 9 wires, you can start taking 2 of them off and put, you know, a 1 and a 0 for 10, a 1 and a 1 for 11, and you can keep going. And I think these are available now, a lot of different places. This is one of my favorite tools. This is a wire stripper. It pinches down. It makes short work of messing around. I've got the other kind too. Sometimes it's more convenient to use this, and this is bigger and bulkier, but it sure does work good. And it's got a crimping tool inside the handle here. Got a cutter, and it all works really good. Who's the manufacturer? I don't even know. I don't see a name on it. I don't remember where I bought it. You see them around. There's different qualities. Different ends on your switches, screws, and it pays to have a little some crimp connectors. I use a lot of these push-on ones. I use a lot of those on this project. I used I just skinned the wire and went from screw to screw on the top, but I used a bunch of blue eyes, and yeah, that's always stuff that's good to have around. What else have I got here? Here's a green light. Boy, I can't believe how expensive some of this stuff has gotten, but you know, that's the way it is. Here's an extra red one, either from some other project, or, you know, what always happens to me, I've mentioned this before, I place an order with one of those online suppliers, and it says free shipping if you get $100, and I'll be like, you know, $79, and it's like, well, they're going to charge me 15, 20 bucks shipping, so I'll buy some extra stuff. I know I'll use it someday. But the day has finally come that I need to start digressing and getting rid of stuff, and I'm running out of time for dreaming about projects and stuff like that. My life is so full, and I'm so busy with so many fun things. I can't believe it. And had heart surgery a little over a year ago. I feel fantastic, and that's given me a real boost. I didn't know. I was kind of bummed out with all of that, but I got a pacemaker now, and things are working. I'm on blood thinners, and that's it. So, yeah. Anyhow, hope you're having a good day. Hope your electric project comes out the way you want it to. If you got questions or want to comment and tell me what an idiot I am down in the comments, go ahead. Ain't nobody gonna get hurt doing this kind of stuff. Just think it through and you'll be okay. Alright? Thanks for watching. Thanks for subbing. TheEZGZ out. Head out and have some fun. But wait! There's more! I need a burrito. That's what I need.